some breaking news I have to share with you from Capitol Hill, where a major standoff has just broken out between House Republicans, the Justice Department, and Attorney General Merrick Garland over something that goes to the heart of both the Biden administration's claims to legitimacy and transparency, as well as, perhaps even more crucially, whether or not Joe Biden is even fit to continue in office. Let me explain. Now, you'll recall a few months ago, Special Counsel Robert Hur. He was the man in charge of leading the investigation into Joe Biden's mishandling of classified documents. And he issued a report saying that he found that Joe Biden had done the wrong thing, but added that any effort to charge the president would not succeed because Joe Biden was too, essentially, senile for a prosecution to go forward. In his report, you'll recall, Hur said that Biden represented as, quote, an elderly man with a poor memory, unquote. And Hur's report also said that during his testimony, Biden suffered all sorts of memory lapses and cognitive failures, including not being able to remember when his son had died, and also apparently not remembering what years he was vice president. Essentially, Robert Hur said that a jury wouldn't convict Biden because they couldn't find that he had what is called the mens rea. That's the legal term for the mental ability to know he was committing a crime when he mishandled classified documents. Because, of course, a guy who spent decades in the Senate, including on the Foreign Relations Committee, and would have had plenty of briefings in secure compartmented facilities, wouldn't know the rules around handling classified material. And Robert Hur left us in no doubt that Biden did do the wrong thing when it came to the documents. Ordinary Americans with security clearances have gone to jail for far less than what Joe Biden did.
My team and I conducted a thorough, independent investigation. We identified evidence that the president willfully retained classified materials after the end of his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. This evidence included an audio-recorded conversation during which Mr. Biden told his ghostwriter that he had, quote, just found all the classified stuff downstairs, end quote. When Mr. Biden said this, he was a private citizen speaking to his ghostwriter in his private rental home in Virginia.
But it was the report's comments on Biden's mental state, you recall, that led to denials, accusations that Hur was being a partisan who wanted to stitch up the president, and the whole thing culminated in that wild press conference at the White House, you recall, where Biden tried to prove his mental fitness, and then in the process managed to confuse the president of Egypt with the president of Mexico.
As you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate.
Well, anyway, as Joe Biden might put it, this has all come to an extraordinary head. House Republicans have demanded the audio of Hur's interviews with the president. And guess what? The White House, the same White House that promised transparency and all that to set itself apart from its predecessors in the Trump administration, guess what they've just done? They've used executive privilege to prevent the audio from being released. I'm sorry, what? They can't use executive action to protect the southern border, but they can use executive privilege to protect the president's reputation? Remember, Joe Biden, his general counsel, his Department of Justice, and Washington, D.C. courts have systematically stripped Donald Trump and his associates, including attorneys, of every privilege protection you can imagine. But now Joe Biden and Merrick Garland are asserting privilege to prevent House Republicans from accessing audio of the Hur interview? Come on. This is very important because New Jersey Congressman Van Drew has laid out just hours ago why Republicans need to hear the audio and not just, as the White House says, read the transcript. Have a listen.
If he truly has those problems, if he cannot deal with these issues, if he didn't know what he is doing, we are going to learn a lot more. And by the way, if it's no big deal, as the other side says, because we have the transcripts, well, we do have the transcripts, so why do you care so much about us getting the audio? We already have the transcripts, so why don't we have the audio? Because we can find out whether he is in that much trouble, if the country is in that much trouble.
And now, in the latest stunning development in the standoff, House Republicans have voted to hold Joe Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt. Now, there's a few things to say about this, and number one, of course, is had there been this sort of standoff and use of executive privilege to withhold evidence from Congress under Trump, well, this would be front-page news, be treated as the greatest constitutional crisis since Watergate. And it is indeed a crisis. I mean, withholding evidence from Congress to protect the president in a case involving pretty much the same charges, mishandling classified documents his rival Donald Trump is being charged with, this is Banana Republic stuff. Now, number two, if you look at the White House's reasoning behind the decision to withhold the evidence, well, the precedent it sets would allow any future president, including Donald Trump, to withhold whatever they want because, oh no, it might be embarrassing. In the executive privilege document, the White House said, quote, "The absence of a legitimate need for the audio recordings lays bare your likely goal to chop them up, distort them, and use them for partisan political purposes," unquote. In other words, they might be mean to the president. Gosh. Yet, we know why the House needs the audio. Van Drew explained it succinctly just a moment ago. We need to know whether the President of the United States is indeed competent to continue his job, regardless of whether or not he violated national security law. Or if instead he should be made to retire at the end of his term, or even have the 25th Amendment, which deals with disability in office, invoked against him. Now, number three, this whole fight is going to once again highlight the issues of mental fitness with the news that Joe Biden has agreed to debate Donald Trump later in the year, as is customary, not later in the year, but in June, and with special conditions including no audience. And you can see how vigorous and excited the president is about this prospect when he was asked about the coming debate a couple of days ago.
Why not debate a third time? I am. Come on.
This is gonna be interesting. Get the popcorn.